You ever watch something fall apart so badly that you can't even get mad anymore? You just sit there, hands on your head, wondering if anyone in charge even knows what they're doing. That was the WNBA Finals. The league finally had what it had been begging for all these years: attention, headlines, mainstream coverage, real momentum. Caitlin Clark had brought in millions of new fans. Networks were fighting for broadcast rights. Ticket prices were skyrocketing. And for the first time in forever, people actually knew when the WNBA season was happening. And what did the league do with that momentum? They fumbled it, like it was part of the plan. They had the biggest story in women's basketball in decades. A rookie who pulled in ratings that rivaled NBA playoff games, who sold out arenas, who made casual sports fans actually stop scrolling. All eyes were finally on the WNBA. Then, when the finals hit, the moment to prove they belonged on that big stage, everything just fell flat. The games were thrown into time slots no one wanted. Tickets were going for next to nothing. The energy felt like a preseason scrimmage instead of a championship showdown. The biggest stage in women's basketball, and you could practically hear crickets in the arena. This was supposed to be their victory lap. The league had seen record-breaking numbers, millions of new fans, non-stop headlines. This was their chance to make a statement. But instead of building on it, they acted like none of it mattered. Like the past 6 months of growth and attention were just some weird fluke. You can't beg people to watch for years, finally get them to care, and then drop the ball this badly. It's almost impressive how fast they turned hype into silence. That kind of mismanagement should be studied. This isn't about Caitlin Clark fans versus WNBA fans. That's just an excuse people throw out to ignore the real issue. The league had momentum, and instead of feeding it, they smothered it. They had one job: deliver a finals worth watching. Instead, it looked like an afterthought, not a celebration of the game, just a routine obligation on the calendar. You could feel it everywhere, in the empty seats, in the half-hearted coverage, in the way people talked about it online. The buzz was gone, and it left everyone asking the same thing: what happened? The truth is simple. They forgot who brought them to the dance. Let's be honest. The entire season revolved around one person. Caitlin Clark didn't just join the WNBA, she ignited it. Overnight, arenas that used to struggle to fill a few rows were packed to the ceiling. Cameras followed her every move. Merchandise sold out. Ticket prices spiked higher than anyone in the league had ever seen. People who had never watched a WNBA game in their lives suddenly cared. Every highlight, every buzzer beater, every headline had one name on it: Caitlin Clark. She didn't just bring in fans, she brought in new life. The kind of buzz the league had been chasing for years. Suddenly, the WNBA wasn't just background noise on ESPN2, it was the talk of sports radio, TV debates, even pop culture. And that scared people, because for the first time, the spotlight wasn't controlled by the league itself or its old guard. It was controlled by a rookie, a 22-year-old from Iowa who didn't come from the league's in-crowd, who wasn't part of its long-time narratives or alliances. She just showed up and started dominating attention. You could feel the tension. Players making comments, analysts taking subtle shots. Everyone pretending it wasn't about her, when everyone knew it was exactly about her. The Caitlin Clark effect wasn't just about skill or talent. It was about exposure. She forced the world to pay attention to a league that had been ignored for years. And instead of embracing it, too many people treated it like a threat. And that's the tragedy. Because no matter what anyone says, she lifted everyone. When Caitlin Clark was on the schedule, ratings tripled. Opposing players saw the biggest crowds of their career. People who couldn't even name another WNBA team were suddenly tuning in. That's what growth looks like. But instead of recognizing it as a gift, it got twisted into a problem. The narrative became toxic: jealousy, politics, unnecessary drama. Every success she had came with a side of resentment. And that resentment started bleeding into everything: the locker rooms, the media, even the finals. Because when Caitlin wasn't there, you could feel the void. The league's biggest draw wasn't part of the biggest moment. And suddenly, all that excitement evaporated. The WNBA thought it could survive on its own buzz after Caitlyn's rookie year surge. But the second she wasn't front and center, reality hit hard. Ratings dipped. Engagement dropped. Even the casual fans who were supposed to stick around after discovering the league? Gone. It's not because they hate women's basketball, it's because they were invested in her story. The underdog narrative, the fire, the trash talk, the passion. She gave them a reason to care. But instead of learning from that, instead of using her rise as a blueprint for what fans actually respond to, the league acted like it didn't need her. Like the same people who brought new eyes to the sport were disposable once the cameras stopped flashing. And then the finals came. No Caitlin Clark, no energy, no spark. The same people who were shouting, "We don't need her," were suddenly staring at half-empty arenas. That's not a coincidence. That's cause and effect. The WNBA can talk all day about equality, exposure, and respect. But none of that matters if you push away the one player who actually delivered those things. Caitlin Clark wasn't the problem. She was the wake-up call. The finals were supposed to be the grand finale, the proof that all that hype wasn't just about one player. The league had the perfect opportunity to say, "See, people care about the WNBA even without Caitlin Clark." But that's not what happened. Instead, what we got was one of the most embarrassing spectacles in professional sports history. Ticket prices dropped lower than a high school playoff game. You could buy a finals seat for the price of a fast food combo. The camera panned across the stands, and what did you see? Empty rows, yawning gaps, and fans scrolling on their phones. This was the pinnacle of women's basketball, and it looked like a pre-season scrimmage that no one showed up for. And the ratings, let's not even start. Numbers so bad that networks were pretending they didn't exist. The same media that had spent months hyping up the new era of women's basketball suddenly went quiet. The tweets stopped. The talk shows moved on. For all that noise about growth, the finals felt like a ghost town. It wasn't just about attendance or numbers. It was about energy. There was none. No electricity. No buzz. No story to cling to. Sports are built on emotion, on connection, on feeling like what you're watching actually matters. The finals had none of that. And the worst part? The league acted like everything was fine. Like this was just another normal year. Statements about competitive basketball and quality play. While fans were literally walking out before the fourth quarter, people weren't buying into the narrative anymore. They wanted drama, storylines, rivalries, tension, the kind of stuff that makes a championship feel like a championship. But instead, they got silence. No villain, no hero, no hook. Just basketball that felt like background noise. The players worked hard, sure, but hard work doesn't sell tickets by itself. Passion does. Stories do. And that's what was missing. Caitlin Clark had given the league an identity, a reason for fans to invest emotionally. And when she wasn't there, the void was massive. The league didn't have a plan to fill it. It was painful to watch the broadcast try to hype it up, cutting to empty seats while commentators pretended this was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The disconnect was almost comical. People online started posting clips comparing the finals crowd to random college games, and the college games looked better. That's how far things had fallen. When the biggest storyline of your finals isn't the game itself, but how few people are watching, that's a problem. A big one. The league had a once-in-a-generation moment to expand its audience, and instead of building on it, it delivered a reminder of why so many fans walked away in the first place. And let's be honest, when you can get better atmosphere watching a junior varsity scrimmage, something has gone terribly wrong. The finals were the league's moment to show it had changed, to prove that all the hype wasn't a fluke. But instead, it just confirmed what everyone was afraid of, that the WNBA didn't know what to do with success once it finally got it. No sense of occasion, no excitement, just another missed opportunity. After the confetti settled and the cameras cut, the conversation wasn't about the games, the plays, or the trophy. It was about the comments. One post-game interview turned into the headline that drowned out everything else. DeWanna One of the league's veterans stood in front of reporters and, instead of celebrating the championship moment, decided to unload about respect, attention, and the supposed lack of credit that players were getting. It was meant to be empowering, maybe even emotional, but to fans watching from the outside, it came off completely tone-deaf. The finals had just ended with half the seats empty. The ratings tanked, and fans were frustrated, not because they didn't respect the players, but because the product had fallen flat. And yet, instead of addressing that, Bonner's message seemed to point the finger at the very audience the league had spent the whole year trying to win over. That's what set people off. Social media exploded within minutes. Clips spread like wildfire, with fans saying exactly what the league didn't want to hear, that it sounded like the WNBA was blaming its own audience for not caring enough. The comments were flooded with people saying, "We did care, until you made us feel like we weren't welcome." And that's the truth. Nobody in the league seems to want to face. The WNBA finally had people paying attention, talking, arguing, investing. But instead of nurturing that energy, too many moments turned into lectures. Instead of bridging the gap between old fans and new ones, it turned into a standoff. Bonner's comments became a symbol of that disconnect. It wasn't just about one interview. It was about years of frustration bubbling over. The league wanted recognition, but it didn't realize recognition comes from performance, not guilt-tripping. Fans don't stick around because you tell them to. They stay because you make them feel something. That's what Caitlin Clark had done all season long. Emotion, drama, rivalry, the stuff that makes sports worth watching. But now, at the biggest moment of the year, the story wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about division, about people taking sides, about players versus fans instead of players and fans. That's not growth. That's regression. What could have been a celebration turned into another viral argument. Another round of bad headlines? Another reason for casual fans to walk away shaking their heads. Because when your league's championship ends, and the only thing people are talking about is a press conference quote, you've officially lost control of the narrative. The Bonner interview didn't kill the finals, it just exposed what was already broken. A league that had the world's attention, and somehow managed to make people tune out. When the noise dies down, when the hashtags fade, and when the memes stop rolling through Twitter, what's left? A hard truth. The WNBA had everything it needed to make history, and it let it slip away. This wasn't just about one player, one final, or one bad headline. It was about an opportunity, a once-in-a-generation moment that was mishandled from the top down. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring new fans to the league, she reignited interest in women's basketball itself. She made people care again. Families, kids, sports fans who hadn't watched a WNBA game in years, they tuned in. Not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. She made the game feel alive, and instead of embracing that spark, the league treated it like a threat. Instead of building around the wave she created, it tried to control it, mute it, redirect it. The result? Silence, empty seats, $10 finals tickets. That's not progress. That's proof that the system doesn't know how to handle success when it finally arrives. The WNBA spent years begging for attention, then panicked when it actually got it. They didn't protect the player who gave them relevance, they didn't market the finals like an event, and they didn't reward the fans who showed up first. They kept playing the same old game off the court: politics, pride, and misplaced priority. Now, look where that's gotten them. You can't sell inspiration if you don't protect what inspires people. You can't talk about growth when your championship looks like a clearance sale. You can't celebrate empowerment while turning away the very audience that made your league relevant, because the fans aren't blind. They see the inconsistency. They see the favoritism, the fouls that never get called, the veterans taking shots at the rookies instead of mentoring them. And most of all, they see how the league's leadership keeps pretending everything's fine when it clearly isn't. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert can call this the strongest year in WNBA history all she wants. But numbers don't lie. Ticket prices, attendance, engagement. They've all nosedived since Caitlin Clark stopped playing. The finals weren't just quiet, they were forgotten. And here's the saddest part. It didn't have to be this way. The WNBA could have used this season as a turning point. They could have said, "This is our time. Let's build a league where every player thrives, where fans feel included, where storylines connect generations." But instead, it became a showcase of division and denial. That's the bigger picture. Not just one bad postseason, but a culture that refuses to evolve. The league has the talent, the athletes, the skill, but it lacks the vision, the humility to learn from its mistakes, the awareness to see what the fans are actually saying. People wanted to believe this was a new era. They wanted to believe that women's basketball had finally found its moment. But you can't keep momentum when you keep alienating the people carrying it forward. And that's what this finals exposed. A system that still doesn't understand how to turn a star into a legacy. Caitlin Clark gave the WNBA everything it said it wanted. Ratings, money, visibility. But you can't build a future on borrowed energy. When she's not on the floor, the lights dim. The excitement fades. The empty seats speak louder than any press release. The WNBA needs to decide what kind of league it wants to be. Does it want to be a movement or a message? A real sport or a social campaign? Because right now, it's trying to be both and succeeding at neither. Sports aren't just about equality. They're about emotion, about connection. Fans don't tune in for slogans. They tune in for stories, rivalries, heroes, and redemption arcs. They tune in because they feel something. That's what Caitlin Clark gave them. And that's what the WNBA has to learn to create on its own. Because here's the truth that no one at the top seems willing to say out loud. No Caitlin, no crowd, no credibility. And until that changes, every empty arena, every cheap finals ticket, and every frustrated fan will keep reminding the league of the same thing. You can't fake passion. You have to earn it.